Have you ever felt like your life looks normal on the outside, but something inside you knows you are meant for more clarity, more depth, more alignment than the version of life you are currently living? If that feeling has been following you quietly, understand this clearly. It is not confusion and it is not restlessness. It is a signal. If you clicked on this video, you did not arrive here by chance. There is a version of you that already exists on a higher timeline, calmer, sharper, untouchable, and right now, that version is closer than it has ever been. The dissatisfaction you've been feeling, the urge to withdraw, the sense that something is shifting beneath the surface is not a problem to fix. It is activation. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you won't be trying to become someone new. You'll be remembering who you were always meant to be. 1. The discomfort you feel is a signal, not a problem. One of the very first signs that you are ready to become the quantum you is a deep, quiet, and often confusing discomfort with your current life. This discomfort does not arrive as chaos or disaster. In fact, on the outside, everything may look perfectly fine. You may still be waking up every day, going to work or school, talking to people, scrolling your phone, laughing at jokes, and handling responsibilities just like before. From the outside, nothing appears broken, but inside, something feels wrong in a way you cannot easily explain. It is not sadness, and it is not depression. It is a sense that the life you are living no longer fits the person you are becoming. The routines that once made you feel secure now feel heavy and restrictive. What used to feel familiar now feels repetitive and draining. You may notice that you go through the same motions every day, but your heart is no longer in it. Conversations start to feel shallow or meaningless, even with people you care about. You listen, you respond, but something inside you feels distant, as if you are no longer fully present in the same way. Goals you once chased with excitement now feel empty, like they belong to an older version of you. You may even feel guilty for feeling this way, because on paper, your life seems fine. But the discomfort does not go away, no matter how much you try to ignore it. This discomfort is not a sign that you are ungrateful, lost, or broken. It is a sign that your inner alignment is changing. You are not confused. You are waking up. When your awareness begins to expand, the life built around your old level of consciousness starts to feel too small. The universe does not push growth through clear instructions or loud signs at first. It begins by creating inner tension. That tension is intentional. It is the universe gently loosening your attachment to a timeline that can no longer support your growth. As your frequency rises, your old environment, habits, and even relationships may start to feel uncomfortable. This happens because they were created for a version of you that is no longer dominant. Just like a child eventually outgrows their clothes, you are outgrowing your old way of living. The discomfort is the stretching phase. It is the signal that you are expanding beyond what once contained you. If everything felt comfortable, there would be no reason to change. Comfort keeps you anchored to the past. Discomfort creates movement. The friction you feel is not punishment. It is guidance. It is the universe telling you that staying where you are will slowly drain your energy, while moving forward will require courage, but bring alignment. The quantum you cannot be born in comfort, because comfort keeps the old identity intact. Transformation requires the old self to loosen its grip. That is why this discomfort often feels internal before anything changes externally. Your inner world begins to shift first. Your beliefs, desires, and sense of self start to collapse quietly, long before your outer life catches up. If you are feeling this discomfort, do not rush to fix it or numb it. Do not assume something is wrong with you. Instead, observe it. Listen to it. It is information. It is feedback from your deeper self. This feeling is not telling you to panic. It is telling you to prepare. You are standing at the edge of a transition. The discomfort is not asking you to go backward to what felt familiar. It is asking you to move forward into what feels unknown, but aligned. This is how the quantum you begins to emerge, through the quiet breakdown of the old self and the subtle invitation to step into something greater. 2. Your old identity is dissolving, even if you haven't noticed yet. As you move closer to becoming the quantum you, something very important begins to happen beneath the surface. The identity you have lived with for years slowly starts to dissolve. This process is subtle, quiet, and often misunderstood. It does not arrive with a clear announcement. Instead, it shows up as uncertainty about who you are, what you want, and where you belong. You may notice that labels you once used to describe yourself no longer feel accurate. The roles you played so confidently before now feel forced or unnatural. You are not losing yourself. You are releasing a version of yourself that was built for survival, not alignment. This can feel uncomfortable because the mind is attached to identity. Identity gives a sense of control and predictability. When that identity begins to weaken, the mind interprets it as danger. You may feel lost, blank, or disconnected, even though nothing specific has gone wrong. You may wonder why you no longer resonate with things that once defined you. Your ambitions may change. Your priorities may shift. Your tolerance for certain behaviors, environments, or conversations may drop suddenly. This is not regression. This is evolution. The old identity was shaped by past experiences, expectations, fears, conditioning, and the need to fit in or be accepted. It was built to navigate a certain level of awareness, but as your consciousness expands, that identity becomes restrictive. It cannot hold the frequency of who you are becoming, so it begins to crack. You may feel less motivated to prove yourself. You may stop chasing validation. You may feel detached from the opinions of others in a way that feels unfamiliar. This detachment can be confusing at first because the ego thrives on recognition and definition. When recognition fades, the ego panics, but your deeper self understands what is happening. During this phase, it is common to feel invisible or misunderstood. People may sense that you are changing, even if they cannot explain how. Some may try to pull you back into the version of you they are comfortable with. Others may drift away naturally. This is not rejection, it is resonance shifting. The quantum you does not need to be explained or defended. It simply emerges when the false layers fall away. You may also notice that you no longer react the same way to situations that once defined your personality. Old triggers lose their intensity. Old patterns feel pointless to repeat. You may pause more often, question more deeply, and act less impulsively. This does not mean you are becoming empty. It means you are becoming spacious. Space is required for a new identity to form. If you cling too tightly to the old self, there is no room for the new one to arrive. The most important thing to understand is that this identity dissolution is not something you need to control or rush. It unfolds naturally. Your only role is to allow it. Trying to rebuild the old version of yourself will only create resistance and exhaustion. Trust that what is falling away is not essential. What is essential cannot be lost. The quantum you is not something you have to create from scratch. It is revealed as the noise clears. If you feel unsure of who you are right now, take that as confirmation, not concern. You are between identities. You are no longer who you were, but not yet fully who you are becoming. This in-between state is powerful, even though it feels unstable. It is the doorway. The moment you stop trying to define yourself, you give the quantum you space to step forward. 3. Time starts to feel strange when you are approaching a quantum shift. As you move deeper into this transformation, you may begin to notice something unusual happening with your sense of time. Days may feel longer or shorter without any clear reason. Sometimes hours pass quickly as if they disappeared, and other times a single moment feels heavy and stretched. You may feel like you are rushing and standing still at the same time. This strange relationship with time is not imagination. It is a sign that your awareness is no longer fully locked into the old, linear way of living. Most people experience time as a straight line. Past, present, future. Regret sits in the past. Anxiety lives in the future. The present moment is often ignored. But when you are approaching a quantum shift, this structure begins to loosen. You start to realize, even without thinking about it consciously, that the past no longer has the same grip on you. Memories may still arise, but they feel distant, less emotionally charged. The future also begins to lose its power to control you. Plans feel flexible, outcomes feel less urgent. You become more aware of the present moment, not because you are trying to be mindful, but because your mind naturally returns there. This shift in time perception happens because the quantum version of you does not operate through fear of what already happened or worry about what might happen. It operates through presence. When your consciousness expands, it pulls you out of mental time and into experiential time. You begin to feel life instead of constantly measuring it. That is why time can feel distorted. You are no longer living inside your thoughts about time. You are living inside the moment itself. You may also feel as if you are standing between two versions of your life. One version is familiar, predictable, and fading. The other feels unclear but strangely magnetic. This in-between state can create the sensation that you are waiting for something, even though you do not know what. That feeling is not impatience. It is alignment forming. The old timeline is losing its hold, but the new one has not fully stabilized yet. In this space, time feels uncertain because you are no longer anchored to a single identity or direction. Another important shift is that urgency begins to dissolve. You may notice that you are less rushed by external pressure. Deadlines still exist, but they do not dominate your emotional state. You stop feeling like life is slipping away from you. Instead, you begin to sense that everything unfolds when it needs to. This does not make you passive. It makes you precise. You act when it feels right, not when fear pushes you to move. When time starts to feel strange, it is because you are stepping out of unconscious momentum. You are no longer being dragged forward by habit or expectation. You are becoming aware of choice. And choice exists only in the present moment. The quantum you understands this intuitively. It knows that the present is where all timelines are selected. Past and future are mental constructions, but the now is where reality responds. If you are experiencing this shift in how time feels, do not try to analyze it too much. Let it happen. It is a sign that you are loosening your attachment to an old way of living. You are no longer racing against time. You are learning to move with it. This is not confusion. It is expansion. The moment you stop fighting time, you step into your power to shape what comes next. 4. You feel called to silence, not noise. As you move closer to the quantum version of yourself, one of the most noticeable changes is a growing pull towards silence. This silence is not just about sound, it is about space. Space from constant talking, constant scrolling, constant explaining, constant reacting, and constant mental stimulation. Things that once kept you entertained or distracted begin to feel overwhelming or empty. Loud environments drain you faster. Too many opinions confuse you. Endless information leaves you tired instead of informed. You may not even know why you want to withdraw a little. You just know that being quiet feels necessary. This call to silence is not weakness, and it is not isolation. It is recalibration. When you are always surrounded by noise, you are constantly absorbing other people's thoughts, emotions, fears, and expectations. That noise pulls your attention outward and keeps you disconnected from your own inner signal. As you approach a quantum shift, your system becomes more sensitive. What once felt normal now feels heavy. Your mind and nervous system begin to reject excess stimulation because it interferes with alignment. You may notice that you no longer feel the urge to explain yourself to everyone. You stop trying to convince people of your ideas, your plans, or your feelings. You realize that talking too much drains energy that could be used for growth. Silence begins to feel powerful rather than awkward. In silence, you hear yourself clearly. You notice subtle thoughts, intuitive nudges, and emotional truths that were always there but drowned out by noise. This is where clarity begins to form naturally, without force. During this phase, solitude becomes comforting. Being alone no longer feels like loneliness. It feels like relief. You may choose to spend more time by yourself, not because you dislike people, but because your inner world needs attention. Silence allows your thoughts to settle. It allows emotions to process fully instead of being pushed aside. It allows your nervous system to calm down and reset. In this calm state, your frequency stabilizes. A stable frequency is essential for quantum shifts. because chaos scatters energy while stillness concentrates it. Silence also changes how you listen. When you speak less, you observe more. You start noticing patterns in people, environments, and situations. You become more aware of what feels aligned and what does not. This awareness is not intellectual, it is embodied. Your body responds before your mind does. You feel tension around certain people. You feel ease around others. Silence sharpens this sensitivity. It trains you to trust your internal guidance instead of external noise. Another important shift is that you become less reactive. When you are constantly exposed to noise, you react automatically. Opinions trigger you. News agitates you. Drama pulls you in. Silence breaks this cycle. It creates a pause between stimulus and response. In that pause, you regain control. The quantum you does not react impulsively. It responds intentionally. Silence gives you access to that level of control. If you find yourself craving silence, do not judge it or fight it. Do not label it as antisocial or unproductive. This phase is not about disappearing from the world. It is about reconnecting with yourself. You are gathering energy. You are listening. You are allowing your inner system to reorganize. Silence is not empty. It is full of information. It is where the quantum self becomes audible. The more comfortable you become with silence, the clearer your path becomes. You stop moving out of pressure and start moving out of alignment. When the noise fades, your direction sharpens. This is why silence appears before transformation. It is the space where the old patterns dissolve and the quantum you quietly steps forward. 5. Your emotional reactions begin to lose power over you. As you move closer to becoming the quantum you, one of the most profound and noticeable changes happens within your emotional world. Situations that once triggered intense reactions begin to feel strangely neutral. Words that once hurt deeply now pass through you with less impact. Circumstances that once caused anxiety, anger, or overthinking no longer control your inner state in the same way. This shift can feel confusing at first because emotions have been such a powerful part of how you navigated life. But this is not emotional numbness, suppression, or avoidance. This is emotional maturity and energetic sovereignty beginning to form. For a long time, your emotions may have ruled your decisions. If someone disrespected you, you reacted. If something did not go your way, it consumed your thoughts. If you felt ignored, rejected, or misunderstood, your inner world became unstable. Emotional reactions kept you tied to external circumstances. Every reaction was a form of permission. Permission for people, situations, and events to dictate how you felt, how you thought, and how you behaved. As long as your emotions were easily triggered, your energy was easily redirected away from your true path. When you are ready for a quantum shift, this pattern begins to dissolve. You still feel emotions, but they no longer overwhelm you. You may notice anger rise, but it does not explode. You may feel sadness, but it does not trap you. You may feel disappointment, but it does not define you. There is a growing gap between what happens and how you respond. That gap is power. In that space, you regain control of your energy. You realize that emotions are experiences, not commands. This change happens because your awareness expands. You start observing your emotions instead of identifying with them. Instead of thinking, I am angry, you notice, anger is passing through me. Instead of believing, this situation ruined my day, you see that it is simply one moment within a much larger field of experience. This shift is subtle but life-changing. When emotions stop owning you, they stop draining you. Your energy remains intact, grounded, and focused. Another important change is that you stop feeding old emotional loops. In the past, you may have replayed situations in your mind repeatedly, reliving conversations, imagining different outcomes, or mentally defending yourself. This mental repetition strengthened emotional reactions and kept you stuck in the same internal cycles. As you approach the quantum you, these loops weaken. You may still remember events, but you no longer relive them emotionally. The memory loses its charge. Without emotional fuel, Old patterns collapse naturally. This emotional stability is not coldness. In fact, it often comes with deeper compassion. When you are no longer controlled by your reactions, you become more understanding of others. You see that most people act from their own wounds, fears, and unconscious patterns. You stop taking everything personally. You realize that not every comment requires a response. Not every misunderstanding requires explanation. And not every challenge requires emotional involvement. This understanding frees you from unnecessary conflict and exhaustion. As emotional reactions lose their grip, your intuition strengthens. When emotions are loud, intuition is quiet. When emotions settle, intuition becomes clear. You start sensing what to engage with and what to walk away from without needing logical justification. You feel when something is aligned and when it is not. This clarity is essential for quantum shifts because alignment is more powerful than effort. The quantum you moves efficiently, not forcefully. You may also notice that your body responds differently to stress. Situations that once created physical tension now pass more smoothly. Your breathing stays calmer, your posture relaxes faster, your nervous system begins to regulate itself naturally. This is a sign that your inner world is stabilizing. A regulated nervous system holds frequency more consistently. Consistent frequency attracts consistent outcomes. It is important to understand that this phase does not mean emotions disappear forever. They still arise, but they no longer dominate your identity. You are no longer defined by how you feel in a given moment. You become the observer, not the storm. This perspective shift is critical because quantum creation requires clarity, not chaos. When your inner state is stable, reality responds more predictably. If you notice that things which once disturbed you no longer have the same effect, do not fear that you are becoming distant or disconnected. You are becoming centered. You are learning where your energy truly belongs. Emotional neutrality does not make you less human. It makes you more conscious. It allows you to choose your responses instead of being dragged by them. This is one of the clearest signs that you are ready for the quantum you. When emotions stop controlling your direction, your energy becomes available for creation instead of reaction. You stop leaking power into temporary feelings and start investing it into long-term alignment. From this state, reality shifts faster because you are no longer fighting yourself from the inside. 6. You begin to trust inner knowing over outer proof. As you move deeper into this transformation, a quiet but powerful shift begins to take place inside you. You start trusting what you feel and sense on the inside more than what the outside world tells you is logical, safe, or acceptable. This does not happen suddenly. It unfolds slowly, often without you realizing it at first. One day you simply notice that external opinions no longer carry the same weight. Advice that once guided you now feels irrelevant. Paths that look good on paper feel wrong in your body. And choices that make no logical sense feel deeply right. For most of your life, you were taught to rely on proof. Proof from society, proof from authority figures, proof from results, numbers, approval, and validation. You were taught to move only when you could see the entire path ahead. But the quantum version of you does not operate that way. The quantum self understands something the conditioned mind forgets. Clarity often comes after movement, not before it. When you are ready for a quantum shift, you stop waiting for certainty because you realize certainty is an illusion. You may notice that your intuition becomes louder. It speaks through subtle feelings rather than words. A sense of ease when you think about one direction, a tightness or heaviness when you consider another. You may feel drawn to people, places, or ideas without being able to explain why. At the same time, you may feel repelled by situations that once felt safe or familiar. This is not randomness. This is alignment intelligence activating. Your inner system is recalibrating to guide you toward timelines that match your evolving frequency. At first, trusting inner knowing can feel uncomfortable, even frightening. The mind wants guarantees, it wants evidence, it wants reassurance that everything will work out. But the more you listen inwardly, the more you realize that the mind's need for proof often comes from fear, not wisdom. Fear of making mistakes, fear of judgment, fear of loss. Inner knowing, on the other hand, does not argue or beg. It simply knows. It feels calm, steady, and grounded, even when it leads you into the unknown. As this trust grows, you begin making decisions differently. You stop overanalyzing every option. You stop asking everyone for their opinion. You stop trying to predict every outcome. Instead, you pause, feel, and move when something feels aligned. This does not make you careless, it makes you precise. You waste less energy forcing situations that are not meant for you. You learn that when something is aligned, it does not drain you, it strengthens you. Another major shift during this phase is that you become comfortable acting without immediate results. In the past, you may have needed quick confirmation that you were on the right path. Likes, praise, success, or visible progress reassured you. As you step into the quantum self, this need fades. You understand that reality responds to frequency before it responds to action. You may take a step forward and see nothing change externally at first, but internally you feel grounded, calm, and clear. That inner stability becomes your proof. This is also when synchronicities begin to appear. Small signs, unexpected connections, timely conversations, opportunities that seem to arrive out of nowhere. These are not rewards. They are confirmations that you are moving in alignment. When you trust inner knowing, you move with the current instead of against it. The universe responds by reducing resistance. Doors open quietly. Things fall into place without struggle. You realize that forcing was never required. As you rely less on outer proof, your relationship with fear changes. Fear no longer stops you. It becomes information rather than authority. You may still feel fear, but it does not decide for you. You understand that fear often appears right before expansion. Instead of interpreting fear as a sign to stop, you see it as a sign that you are leaving familiar territory. The quantum you understands that growth happens at the edge of the known. You also stop needing permission. You no longer wait for someone to tell you it is okay to change, to leave, to start over, or to choose differently. You realize that waiting for permission keeps you trapped in other people's timelines. Inner knowing gives you self-authorization. You begin to trust that you are capable of navigating what comes next, even if you cannot see it clearly yet. This phase can make you feel misunderstood by others. People may question your choices. They may say you are being unrealistic, risky, or different, but their doubt no longer destabilizes you. You are not trying to convince anyone. You are listening to something deeper than logic, something older than conditioning, something that knows exactly where you need to go. Trusting inner knowing is one of the strongest signs that you are ready for the quantum you. It means you are no longer building your life based on fear, validation, or external approval. You are building it based on resonance. And resonance always leads to the right place, even if the path does not look clear at first. When you trust what you feel instead of what you are told, you stop waiting for reality to change. You become the point where change begins. 7. You realize you do not need to become anything, you need to remove what is false. As you reach this stage of the transformation, a deep and liberating realization begins to settle in. You stop feeling like you are chasing some future version of yourself. You stop believing that you are incomplete, behind, or missing something essential. Instead, you begin to understand a truth that changes everything. You do not need to become the quantum you, because the quantum you already exists. What you are experiencing now is not a process of addition, but a process of removal. For most of your life, growth was presented as accumulation. Learn more, do more, prove more, achieve more, become more. This way of thinking creates endless pressure and constant dissatisfaction because no matter how much you add, it never feels like enough. There is always another level to reach, another standard to meet, another version of yourself to chase. As you move into quantum awareness, this illusion begins to collapse. You realize that the feeling of lack was never caused by not having enough. It was caused by carrying too much that was never truly yours. Over time, you absorbed beliefs that did not belong to you. Ideas about who you should be, how fast you should succeed, what a meaningful life should look like. You learn to silence parts of yourself to be accepted. You learn to perform instead of exist. You learn to prioritize safety over truth. These layers slowly covered your natural frequency. They shaped your decisions, reactions, and self-image. The quantum you was always present underneath, but distorted by conditioning. At this stage, you begin to see clearly what is false. You notice habits you maintained out of fear, not alignment. You notice goals that were inherited, not chosen. You notice relationships that were built on obligation, not resonance. This awareness can feel uncomfortable because it forces honesty. You can no longer pretend that what drains you is nourishing you. You can no longer convince yourself that what feels wrong is right, just because it is familiar. The most powerful part of this realization is that you stop trying to fix yourself. You stop treating yourself as a problem that needs improvement. Instead, you treat yourself as a signal that needs clarity. Each false layer you remove brings relief, not loss. When you let go of people-pleasing, you gain peace. When you release the need for constant validation, you gain stability. When you drop the identity of who you thought you had to be, you gain access to who you actually are. This removal process happens internally first. You stop believing certain thoughts the moment they arise. You stop engaging in inner dialogue that criticizes, doubts, or limits you. You notice that many of your fears were not warnings, but habits. They were repeated so often that they felt real. As awareness sharpens, these fears lose authority. They still appear, but they no longer dictate your choices. Without belief, they fade. As false layers fall away, your energy changes. You feel lighter, clearer, and more grounded. You no longer waste energy maintaining a version of yourself that does not feel authentic. This conservation of energy is critical. The quantum self operates efficiently. It does not leak energy through overthinking, self-doubt, or emotional resistance. When you stop carrying what is false, your energy becomes available for creation, focus, and alignment. You may also notice that life becomes simpler, not easier, but simpler. Decisions take less mental effort. You know what feels right and what does not without needing long explanations. You stop forcing yourself into environments that feel wrong. You stop trying to impress people who do not see you. This simplicity is not minimalism for appearance, it is clarity in action. When the false is removed, the essential becomes obvious. Another important shift is that you stop waiting to feel ready. Readiness is revealed, not achieved. The more you remove false expectations, timelines, and comparisons, the more natural your next step feels. You stop asking, "Am I good enough?" and start asking, "Is this aligned?" That question changes everything. Alignment produces momentum. Forcing produces exhaustion. This stage can feel quiet, even anticlimactic, because it is not dramatic. There is no explosion, no sudden transformation others can see immediately, but inside there is a profound sense of recognition. You feel like you are finally meeting yourself without masks, without pressure, without distortion. This recognition brings calm confidence. You do not need to announce who you are becoming, you embody it. The quantum you emerges naturally when what is false falls away. Not because you worked harder, but because you stopped resisting truth. Not because you added more discipline, but because you removed internal conflict. This is why the most powerful transformations look subtle from the outside. They happen internally first. Reality adjusts afterward. If you are experiencing this realization, trust it. You are not losing parts of yourself. You are reclaiming what was always there. Every layer you release brings you closer to your natural state. And your natural state is not weak, confused, or incomplete. It is calm, clear, and deeply capable. This is the final sign. When you stop trying to become and start allowing yourself to be, the quantum you is no longer a future possibility. It becomes your present reality. 8. You understand that reality responds to who you are being, not what you are trying to get. At this stage of the journey, one of the deepest and most transformative realizations finally settles into your awareness. Reality is not responding to your effort, your struggle, or your constant trying. It is responding to your state of being. For a long time, you were taught that life rewards action alone, Work harder, push more, chase faster, prove yourself endlessly. And while action has its place, you begin to see clearly that action without alignment only creates resistance. The quantum you does not force outcomes, it becomes the frequency that naturally attracts them. This realization changes how you approach everything. You stop obsessing over results. You stop asking, how do I get this? And start asking, who am I being while I move? Because you finally understand that what you consistently embody shapes what appears in your life. When you operate from fear, reality mirrors instability. When you operate from lack, reality reflects scarcity. When you operate from clarity, calm, and self-trust, reality reorganizes itself to match that state. You may begin to notice that things start shifting without excessive effort. Conversations go differently. Opportunities appear unexpectedly. Problems resolve themselves without confrontation. This is not luck. This is coherence. When your inner world becomes stable, the outer world no longer needs to create chaos to get your attention. The universe communicates through contrast only when you are not listening. Once you are aligned, it responds through flow. At this stage, you stop chasing manifestations as objects. You no longer treat goals as things outside of you that must be captured or earned. You realize that every outcome is a byproduct of identity. Money responds to your sense of self-worth and trust. Relationships respond to your boundaries and self-respect. Peace responds to your ability to remain present. Success responds to clarity, not desperation. The quantum you understands that the fastest way to change reality is to stabilize the internal state from which you are operating. This is also where patience transforms. You stop waiting anxiously for things to happen. You are no longer scanning reality for proof that you are on the right path. You trust the process because you trust yourself. When impatience arises, you recognize it as old conditioning, not truth. You understand that forcing timing creates friction, while alignment collapses time naturally. Things arrive when your internal state is ready to sustain them, not when your mind demands them. Another powerful shift at this stage is that you stop negotiating with reality. In the past, you may have tried to compromise your truth to make things work. You lowered standards. You accepted situations that felt wrong. You stayed quiet when something crossed your boundaries. Now, you understand that every compromise of self creates energetic conflict. The quantum you does not bargain with misalignment. It chooses coherence, even when that choice feels uncomfortable at first. As a result, your decisions become cleaner. You walk away sooner. You say no without guilt. You say yes without fear. You do not over-explain. You do not justify. You act from clarity rather than emotion. This clarity sends a powerful signal to reality. When you respect your own energy, reality mirrors that respect back to you. Situations either rise to meet you or fall away. There is no struggle in this, only sorting. You also begin to see that obstacles were never punishments. They were feedback. Every challenge you faced earlier in life was pointing you toward this realization. When you were reactive, life gave you triggers. When you were disconnected, life gave you discomfort. When you were asleep, life created disruption. Now that you are aware, the feedback changes. The lessons become quieter. The resistance lessens. Life no longer needs to shout. At this level, you stop identifying as someone who is becoming successful, becoming confident, or becoming awakened. You simply operate as someone who is aligned. From that state, success, confidence, and clarity emerge naturally. You no longer chase transformation. You maintain coherence. That maintenance becomes your discipline. Not rigid discipline, but inner consistency. You show up as yourself, without fragmentation. This is where the idea of the quantum you fully integrates. It is no longer a concept. It is a way of being. You understand that multiple versions of your life are always available, but you can only access the one that matches your frequency. You do not need to visualize endlessly or affirm aggressively. Your daily state is the signal. Your emotional baseline is the command. Your presence selects the timeline. You may also notice that your relationship with effort changes. You still take action, but it feels lighter. You move when inspired, rest when needed, and trust the rhythm of your energy. Burnout becomes a signal instead of a badge of honor. Rest becomes strategic rather than lazy. You understand that sustainability matters more than intensity. The quantum you plays the long game, not because it is patient, but because it is grounded. At this point, comparison loses its grip on you. You stop measuring your progress against others. You realize that every person is operating from a different frequency, a different lesson, a different timeline. Comparison now feels irrelevant, even distracting. You focus inward, not out of ego, but out of responsibility. You know that your job is not to outperform others, but to remain aligned with yourself. Perhaps the most powerful change is this. You stop needing life to prove anything to you. You no longer demand signs every moment. You no longer test reality. You move with quiet confidence, knowing that coherence always produces results, even if they are not immediately visible. This trust is not blind faith, it is experiential. You have felt what misalignment costs. You have felt what alignment produces. You choose accordingly. This is the stage where the quantum you becomes stable, not perfect, not finished, but stable. You are no longer swinging between extremes. You are no longer searching for yourself in outcomes. You are rooted in who you are being. From this place, life becomes responsive instead of resistant. If you are here now, understand this clearly. You are not waiting for your life to change. Your life is waiting for you to remain aligned. Every moment you stay present, grounded, and honest with yourself, you reinforce the signal. Reality has no choice but to respond. This is not magic. This is coherence. This is the quantum you in motion. 9. You stop chasing change and realize you are the source of it. At this stage, something fundamental shifts in how you relate to life itself. You no longer feel like someone waiting for circumstances to improve, for motivation to arrive, or for the universe to finally give you a sign. Instead, you begin to understand a truth that completely dissolves desperation and striving. You are not inside reality trying to change it. Reality is responding to you. This realization does not inflate the ego. It quiets it, because you no longer feel the need to chase, prove, or force anything to happen. For much of your life, change may have felt external. You believe that once something changed outside of you, money, people, opportunities, confidence, timing, then you would finally feel settled inside. This belief kept you in a constant state of waiting. Waiting to feel ready, waiting to feel confident, waiting to feel aligned, waiting for permission, waiting for certainty. But now, that waiting dissolves. You see clearly that waiting was never neutral. Waiting was a subtle form of resistance. It kept you disconnected from your power. As the quantum you stabilizes, you stop positioning yourself as someone who reacts to life. You stop thinking in terms of, when this happens, then I will feel okay. You realize that this mindset keeps you stuck in dependency. Instead, you reverse the equation. You begin from the inside. You choose your state first, calm first, clarity first, self-respect first, presence first. From that state, you act. And when you act from coherence, life responds differently. This is where chasing ends, not because you gave up, but because you outgrew it. Chasing is rooted in lack. It assumes something is missing and must be obtained. The quantum you does not operate from lack. It operates from sufficiency, not complacency, but inner completeness. You no longer feel empty without results. You feel grounded without validation. This grounding becomes magnetic. People, opportunities, and outcomes respond to it without force. You also stop obsessing over changing yourself. You no longer see self-improvement as a constant battle against your flaws. You stop micromanaging your personality, your emotions, your thoughts. Instead, you allow yourself to stabilize. You correct gently. You observe honestly. You adjust without punishment. This compassion toward yourself removes internal resistance. When resistance drops, energy flows. When energy flows, change happens naturally. Another major shift at this stage is that you stop trying to control every outcome. Control was never confidence, it was fear disguised as planning. The quantum you understands that control tightens reality, while trust expands it. You still set direction, you still take responsibility, but you release the need to predict every step. You allow room for intelligence beyond the mind to operate. This does not make you passive, it makes you adaptable. You may notice that setbacks affect you differently now. When something does not go as expected, you do not collapse into self-doubt or frustration. You pause, you observe, you ask, what is this redirecting me toward, instead of, why is this happening to me? This subtle change in questioning changes everything. One keeps you stuck, the other keeps you moving. You realize that resistance often appears when something is misaligned, not when you are failing. At this level, responsibility feels different. It no longer feels heavy. You are not carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. You are simply responsible for your state, your choices, and your boundaries. That is it. You stop trying to manage other people's reactions, emotions, or perceptions. You understand that doing so leaks energy and creates entanglement. The quantum you values clean energy. Clean energy comes from clean responsibility. This is also where discipline transforms. Discipline is no longer forcing yourself to do what you hate. It becomes devotion to alignment. You stop asking, how do I push myself? And start asking, what supports my clarity? Sleep becomes important. Nutrition matters. Movement matters. Mental input matters. Not out of obsession, but out of respect. You treat your body and mind as instruments of perception, not tools for punishment. You also notice that your internal dialogue becomes quieter, not silent, but less chaotic. Thoughts pass through without hooking you as easily. You do not argue with yourself constantly. You do not rehearse imaginary conversations endlessly. You catch yourself sooner. This inner quiet is not emptiness, it is focus. And focus is one of the most powerful forces in existence. Where focus goes, energy follows. Where energy stabilizes, reality forms. Another important realization at this stage is that you stop fearing stagnation. In the past, stillness may have felt like laziness or falling behind. Now, you understand that stillness is often integration. Growth does not always look like movement. Sometimes it looks like stabilization. The quantum you knows when to move and when to hold. This timing cannot be rushed. It is felt. You also stop dramatizing your journey. You do not need every phase to feel intense, emotional, or meaningful. You allow life to be ordinary at times. You find peace in routine without losing awareness. This balance is maturity. Extremes settle. You are no longer swinging between obsession and exhaustion. You move steadily. This steadiness compounds power over time. Perhaps the most powerful change is this. You stop doubting your own experience. You trust what you have lived, felt, and learned. You no longer look outward constantly for confirmation that you are doing the right thing. You measure alignment internally. Does this drain me or strengthen me? Does this bring clarity or confusion? Does this expand or contract me? These questions guide you more accurately than any external metric ever could. At this stage, the idea of the quantum you is no longer something you think about. It is something you live from. You are not trying to shift timelines consciously. Your state does it automatically. You are not forcing change. You are embodying coherence. And coherence is powerful because it does not need effort to sustain itself. If you are here now, understand this clearly. Nothing is missing. Nothing needs to be chased. Nothing needs to be proven. You are no longer becoming someone else. You are stabilizing into yourself. From this place, change is inevitable not because you demand it, but because reality cannot remain unchanged around someone who is internally aligned. This is the final integration. You are not waiting for your life to shift. Your presence is already doing the work. This is the quantum you no longer emerging, but active. Ds. You enter a state of quiet, certainty, where nothing needs to be proven anymore. At this final stage, something settles inside you so deeply that it no longer needs explanation. It is not excitement, it is not emotional intensity, it is not motivation, it is certainty. Quiet, grounded, Unshakable certainty. You do not announce it. You do not defend it. You do not argue for it. You simply live from it. This is one of the clearest signs that the quantum you is no longer forming. It has stabilized. For most of your life, certainty came from external sources, approval from others, results that proved you were right, recognition that validated your choices, progress that could be measured and shown. Without those things, doubt would creep in. You would question yourself. Second, guess your decisions. Wonder if you were doing enough, moving fast enough, or choosing correctly. That constant inner negotiation drained enormous energy. Now, that noise fades. You begin to notice that you no longer feel the urge to explain yourself. You stop oversharing your plans. You stop trying to convince people of your vision, not because you are hiding, but because you understand something fundamental. What is real does not require defense. When your inner alignment is solid, external misunderstanding does not threaten you. Other people's doubt no longer creates doubt inside you. Their confusion does not destabilize your clarity. This certainty does not come from knowing every answer. In fact, you may know less than before, but what you know deeply. You trust your perception. You trust your timing. You trust your ability to adapt. That trust replaces the need for control. You no longer try to grip life tightly. You let it move, and you move with it. Another powerful shift at this stage is that your sense of urgency dissolves completely. You are no longer racing against time. You are no longer afraid of missing out or falling behind. You understand that rushing is a symptom of misalignment. When you are aligned, you feel no pressure to hurry. You act decisively, but not anxiously. You move forward, but not frantically. This calm pace does not slow you down, it sharpens you. You also notice that fear has lost its authority. It may still appear, but it no longer commands you. Fear becomes a signal, not a stop sign. You recognize it as the nervous system reacting to expansion, not danger. Because of this, you stop avoiding discomfort. You do not seek pain, but you no longer run from challenge. You understand that growth does not feel dramatic anymore. It feels steady. At this level, your relationship with success changes completely. Success is no longer something you chase or measure obsessively. It becomes a byproduct of alignment. You do your work with presence. You make choices with clarity. You maintain boundaries with ease. Outcomes follow naturally, and when they do, you receive them calmly. You do not inflate. You do not attach your worth to them. You integrate them and continue forward. This is also where comparison finally dies, not intellectually, but emotionally. You may still notice what others are doing, but it no longer affects your self-perception. Their pace does not threaten you. Their achievements do not diminish you. Their failures do not reassure you. You are no longer using others as reference points. Your reference point is internal coherence. Another important shift is how you handle uncertainty. In the past, uncertainty may have caused anxiety. You wanted answers quickly. You wanted guarantees. Now, uncertainty feels spacious instead of threatening. You understand that not knowing is not weakness, it is openness. The quantum you does not demand certainty before moving. It trusts that clarity emerges through engagement, not hesitation. You may also notice that your emotional baseline becomes remarkably stable, not flat, not numb stable. Highs are calmer, lows are shorter. You return to center faster. This stability allows you to hold more responsibility without collapsing. You can manage complexity without becoming overwhelmed. You can lead, create, and decide without emotional turbulence. This is maturity at a deep level. At this stage, you stop trying to manifest in the way you once did. You realize that manifestation was never about wanting intensely or visualizing constantly. It was always about identity alignment. When who you are matches what you desire, reality responds effortlessly. When there is mismatch, no amount of effort can force coherence. This understanding removes desperation completely. You also stop romanticizing transformation. You do not need every moment to feel profound. You allow life to be simple. You find meaning in consistency, not drama. You take care of what is in front of you. You refine instead of reinventing constantly. This grounded approach creates long-term power. The quantum you values sustainability over spectacle. Perhaps the most important realization at this final stage is this: you stop asking life to change you. You take responsibility for your state. You regulate yourself. You ground yourself. You choose alignment daily, not perfectly, but honestly. This self-responsibility is freeing, not heavy, because once you accept responsibility for your inner state, nothing external can take your power away. If you are here now, understand this clearly. This is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of living from integration instead of seeking. You are no longer assembling yourself. You are inhabiting yourself. You are no longer becoming the quantum you. You are expressing it through how you move, speak, decide, and exist. Nothing needs to be proven. Nothing needs to be forced. Nothing needs to be chased. You are here. You are aligned. And reality already knows how to respond to you. 11. You live from integration where the quantum you becomes your default state. At this stage, the most important shift is not dramatic, visible, or exciting to explain. It is subtle, steady, and deeply embodied. You are no longer switching between awareness and unconsciousness. You are no longer on the path, only during certain moments, and then falling back into old patterns. Integration has happened. The quantum you is no longer something you access occasionally. It becomes your default state. Integration means there is no split inside you anymore. In the past, you may have felt divided. One part of you wanted growth, peace, and alignment, while another part clung to fear, habits, and familiar patterns. This inner conflict created exhaustion. You spent energy negotiating with yourself, convincing yourself, correcting yourself, restarting again and again. Now, that internal war quiets, not because you became perfect, but because you became honest. You stopped pretending to be someone you are not. You begin to notice that your thoughts, emotions, and actions are aligned more often than not. You think clearly, you feel steadily, and you act intentionally. When misalignment appears, you catch it early. You do not spiral, you do not shame yourself, you adjust and return to center. This ability to self-correct gently is one of the strongest signs of integration. The quantum you does not require harsh discipline, it operates through awareness. At this level, your relationship with identity becomes fluid. You no longer cling to rigid definitions of who you are. You allow yourself to evolve without labeling every change. You understand that identity is a tool, not a prison. You can be focused without being rigid, calm without being passive, confident without being loud, strong without being aggressive. This flexibility allows you to adapt to life without losing yourself. You also notice that your energy becomes consistent. In the past, you may have moved in bursts, intense motivation followed by burnout, deep clarity followed by confusion. Now, your energy flows more evenly. You know how to pace yourself. You respect your limits without shrinking your vision. This consistency is powerful because it compounds. Small aligned actions repeated over time reshape reality more effectively than intense effort driven by instability. Integration also changes how you relate to others. You stop trying to fix people. You stop absorbing their emotions. You stop taking responsibility for their growth. This does not make you distant. It makes you clean. You can be present without being entangled. You can care without sacrificing yourself. You can listen without losing clarity. Relationships either stabilize or naturally fall away without drama. You no longer cling, you allow. Another key shift is that your intuition and logic stop competing. Earlier, intuition may have felt irrational and logic felt restrictive. Now, they work together. Intuition guides direction. Logic supports execution. You no longer ignore practical steps in the name of spirituality, and you no longer ignore inner signals in the name of reason. This balance grounds the quantum you in real life, not fantasy. At this stage, you also stop searching for meaning everywhere. You understand that meaning is not hidden, it is created through presence. Washing dishes, working, resting, creating, speaking, walking, everything becomes neutral and complete. You are not constantly asking, "What does this mean?" You are simply engaged. This engagement brings peace that does not depend on circumstances. You may notice that your nervous system feels safer. You recover faster from stress. Your body feels more like home. You breathe more deeply. You sleep more naturally. This physical regulation matters. The quantum you is not just a mindset, it is a physiological state. A calm nervous system allows higher awareness to remain stable. Chaos pulls you back into survival. Regulation keeps you integrated. Another profound sign of integration is that you stop romanticizing the past and idealizing the future. The past loses emotional weight, the future loses fantasy. Both become informational rather than emotional. You live where your power is now. This presence does not make life boring, it makes it rich. You notice details, you listen fully, you respond accurately. You stop missing your life while thinking about it. At this level, you also stop outsourcing authority. You no longer need someone to tell you what is true for you. You still learn, you still listen, but you decide, you trust your discernment. You are not easily swayed by trends, opinions, or fear-based narratives. This sovereignty is quiet. You do not argue or preach. You simply live from clarity. You may also find that your desires simplify. You do not want everything anymore. You want what is aligned. Excess loses its appeal. Drama loses its pull. You choose quality over quantity in thoughts, relationships, goals, and commitments. This simplification is not minimalism as an aesthetic, it is alignment as a function. Less friction, less noise, more signal. Integration also brings humility, not the kind that shrinks you, but the kind that keeps you grounded. You understand that growth is ongoing, you remain open. You do not assume you have arrived at a final destination, but you no longer feel incomplete. You are comfortable being a work in progress without feeling broken. This balance creates confidence without arrogance. Perhaps the most important realization at this stage is this: you stop trying to hold on to the quantum state. You trust that it is who you are now. Even when life challenges you, even when emotions arise, even when uncertainty appears, you know how to return to center. You no longer fear losing yourself. That fear only existed when your sense of self was fragile. Now it is rooted. This is integration, not opioc experience. Not a constant high, but a stable foundation. You live from coherence. You move from clarity. You respond instead of react. You create without force. The quantum you is no longer an idea, a phase, or a future self. It is the way you live, quietly, consistently, and fully present. And from this place, life does not need to be controlled. It unfolds, and you meet it exactly as you are. If you have followed this journey from the beginning to this point, understand something deeply important. Nothing you experienced was random, and nothing you felt was a mistake. Every phase you moved through was necessary. The discomfort, the identity collapse, the silence, the emotional neutrality, the trust in inner knowing, the release of false layers, the shift in how you relate to reality, and the quiet certainty that followed all of it was preparation. Not for becoming someone new, but for remembering who you have always been beneath conditioning, fear, and noise. The quantum you is not a version of you that lives in the future. It is not something you unlock after enough effort, suffering, or discipline. It is the natural state that emerges when resistance drops, when you stop fighting yourself, when you stop outsourcing authority, when you stop chasing proof and start trusting coherence. You did not create this version of yourself, you uncovered it. From here, life does not suddenly become perfect. Challenges will still appear, uncertainty will still arise. But the difference is fundamental. You no longer experience these moments as threats to your identity. You experience them as movements within life, not attacks against you. You are no longer defined by circumstances. You are defined by how you meet them, calmly, clearly, present. You now understand that growth is not loud, transformation is not dramatic. The most powerful shifts happen quietly, internally, and steadily. You stop needing to announce your change. You stop needing validation. Your life begins to reflect alignment naturally, not because you forced it, but because you became consistent with who you truly are. The quantum you does not rush. It does not panic. It does not compare. It does not beg reality to change. It stays coherent, and coherence reshapes everything it touches. From this point forward, your only responsibility is simple, but not always easy. Remain honest with yourself. Return to presence when you drift. Choose alignment when faced with fear. Protect your energy. Trust your timing. You do not need to hold on to this state tightly. It will hold you as long as you do not abandon it for old habits. You are not at the end of a journey. You are at the beginning of living from integration instead of seeking, from clarity instead of confusion, from self-trust instead of self-doubt. Nothing needs to be proven. Nothing needs to be forced. Nothing needs to be chased. You are already here. You are already aligned. And the quantum you is no longer something you are becoming. It is who you are now.